Welcome to the Elokus podcast. This is class number 10 in the second discourse, Oteh Salma. This is the second discourse in the great Sefer B'Shasha Hegdimu 5672. We are holding now in class number 10 in the second discourse, and this is in the end of chapter 6. So the general gist of the discussion in this whole parak is to explain the concept of Or Pnimi, internal light, and how in this chapter we are explaining how that relates in the realms above. In the first chapter, in the first parak, in the first Maamor, in the first discourse, it was talking about the Or Pnimi in the human experience, in the physical experience, and now he's speaking about it in the divine realms. And over here, we're trying to emphasize two sides of the coin when it comes to Or Pnimi. Since Or Pnimi means that a light fuses with the vessel, and the vessel internalizes the light, and for that reason the vessel has to be particular, and it has to be compatible with the light. And as we're going to learn later in the Maamor, the lights themselves are preconditioned to go in a vessel. It's not like there's just variable lights that can go into anything, and then the vessel comes and grabs it and vesselizes it. It's not what happens. There is already an intention. There's already a certain predetermination that this particular light is going to go to that vessel. The light already has the subtleties of the subtleties. The subtleties, that's what's going to be a very long and deep discussion in the Maamor, that even in the Oires themselves, there's already the beginning, the specifics that will later be very pronounced in the vessel is already there in the lights in a very vague way. But the point over here is the two, energy and vessel, come together and they merge. And when they merge, two things happen. Earlier we were learning how the vessel leaves its imprint on the light, that in accordance to the vessel, that's how the light is going to operate. Although the effect of something is going to come from the light and from the energy, from the Or, yet it's going to be in accordance to the nature of the vessel, to the condition of the vessel. But on the other hand, we're learning that notwithstanding that, the lights and the energy still dominate the vessel. They don't allow the vessel complete control, because if vessels would have complete control, they would block the light completely. They would thicken and cover and block, because the vessels are more about concealment, and the light is more about revelation. So the vessels add their 2 cents, but just enough, but not too much. So the light still has control. Why? Because the oiros are mizgalim, they reveal themselves in the vessels, and in a sense we might say they humble the vessels. They make the vessels be a little not so loud. The vessels are silenced and allow for the light to do the light's thing. Although they don't move to the side completely, because if they would move to the side completely, we wouldn't need the vessel, because they wouldn't contribute anything. We need the vessel to add limitation. But we don't want too much constriction and too much limitation, because too much constriction and too much limitation would block Hashem's light completely from the world. And that's what we were learning in last class, that the function of the entire realm of spheroids, which are oiros and kelim, of the world of Atzilus, as he explained, the whole realm of what we call Elokus, the realm of divinity, the realm of divine attributes, the whole system, the whole medium system that mediates the godly light down into the creation from the Or Ein Sof, from the infinite, all the levels, but primarily Atzilus. What's its function? Is its function to just bring about creation, or is its function to illuminate creation? So we were learning that the primary and main function, that the primary and more important function of Atzilus and of Oiros and Kelim is more important even than the slowing down of the light and allowing for the creations to be, because as we learned yesterday, with God's omnipotent power, He could have made the creations be in existence and feel themselves without these myriads of levels of spheroids and all of that. He could have just decided to create a world, and the world would have been a world. And he could have even decided to create a world that knows itself directly from the Or Ein Sof, means a world that is not dissolved in him. He could have done that, but the reason why he didn't do it that way, and he chose to have a whole system, is because he wants connectivity to the creation. He doesn't just want a creation; he wants connectivity to the creation. He wants the creations to be in a relationship with him. For that, Hashem brings about these whole series of evolution, of godliness. In other words, Hashem lowers himself down to a place where we can know him, to a place where he has already some form of a face, so that we can imagine him with a certain face. A face of a kind father, as we discussed yesterday, a compassionate ruler, and the like, a king, and all these various different features. Because if we wouldn't have all these mediating stages, it would be God and us, and there would be no link to connect us. The finite world would be utterly and completely disconnected from Hashem, and that's not what Hashem wants in creation. So the medium of the spheroids and in general, and the oilamais in between, and the realm of Elokus, of Atzilus, more specifically, is to act as a connector, to act as a bridge between Hashem and the world. But why is that so important to talk about now? Because that illustrates that element is more related to the fact that the Kalim are not getting in the way. In other words, the first function that we spoke about, the Kalim, that the Kalim affect the light and cause the light to create creations that are more blocked and less aware of the godly energy. That's attributed to the vessels. That's more of a contribution that the Kalim make. But here we're talking about that the second contribution, that Hashem should then, after he creates the creations that are separated from him, he should come close to the creations and engage with them and involve with them and become, that we should be able to feel him both intellectually and emotionally, to love him, to fear him, to know him. And we learned that is because of the spheroids. That's not so much because of the kalim of the spheroids. That's more connected to the oiros of the spheroids. That means that Hashem comes through the vessels. That the lights, the divine, the Or Ein Sof, makes himself known to us through the vessels. For that we need that the Or should dominate over the kalim. Not the kalim should be the more powerful, but the Or should be more powerful than the Kalim. And that's what he was bringing the pasuk, if you remember earlier, HaChachma ta'uz l'chacham yoiser me'asara shlitim be'ir. That the Chacham, a pasuk from Kehelas, that the wisdom is strengthens the wise man more than the 10 governors of the city. The 10 governors of the city are the Kalim, the vessels, which their primary function is to create obstruction and blockage and concealment to allow for the creations to come forth. But even more powerful than them, the Or dominates over the Kalim. But how does the Or dominate over the Kalim? Not by from outside of it, but from the inside. Since the Or reveals itself in the Kali, the light reveals itself in the vessel becomes so enamored, so to speak, by the light that it loses itself. It forgets that it exists, thereby allowing the light to shine through the vessel without the vessel mixing in. And then you get a pure transmission. And then the worlds that are created are illuminated. They can feel the Eibishter, they can feel God, and build a relationship with him. So that's what we were learning over here. Let's go back another line. The lulei Atzilus, if not for Atzilus, we wouldn't know at all the inyan of the Or Ein Sof. We wouldn't know Hashem at all. There wouldn't be any knowledge, and there wouldn't be any comprehension of godliness in the creations. Because we can't know God, but we can know godliness. And when Hashem funnels himself through the Kalim, he brings himself to a place that he has somewhat of a knowable self. There wouldn't be the Izgalus, the revelation of any other Koichos Elikim, Kalal, Kama Yisroel, that we should have feelings towards Hashem. Kama Yisroel Ava V'yira. That we should be able to have an Yisroel. And maybe what he means, so why is he calling that Koichos Elikim? Why doesn't he call that Koichos, our Koichos? We should be Koichos of our Koichos, spiritual Koichos of the person. But I think what that means is, because the only way we can love God is because Hashem's love emanates and flows into the universe. It flows Hashem's love. From Hashem's love to us, from the power of Hashem's chesed, comes the energy of love from our love to Him. So if not for for Hashem funneling through Atzilus, there wouldn't be oiros of love. There wouldn't be chesed. There wouldn't be the Hashem's revelation through the power of Gevura, which instills and brings about the feeling of fear and awe in front of Hashem. And through the Atzilus, there is godly revelation of the world. But over here is where we were holding. Now the root of this hamshacha, of this flow, of this revelation through Atzilus is attributed to Chachma. What does he mean by this? We'll see in a moment. And that's why Chachma is called the beginning of the whole evolution. Meaning, the point of the evolution of godliness, the reason there is even an evolving levels of the divine. It's not just God, but God evolves. He evolves himself. He emerges to us stage by stage, lowering himself to a place when we can connect to him. That's called Seder Hishtalshalos. And obviously there's also the order of the worlds themselves being created. But even before we talk about the worlds, there's Elokus. The divine adjusts itself. Hashem modifies himself bit by bit to come closer to the world. So that a whole Seder of Ishtalshalos, of Hashem's modification, starts with Chachma. The Sheidish Ishtalshalos is all with Chachma. Why is that? Because what's the point? What's the primary point of the Ishtalshalos? The primary point of the Ishtalshalos is to make Hashem known to us. That there should be a Gilui of Him to us. Now Chachma is a keli to this revelation of Oirin Soif, leheir b'b'chenes pnimius, for him to shine in a pnimiustic way. So what is I think what he's saying over here, and this is it seems that this is what he's trying to convey over here, is as follows. As mentioned earlier, the Atzilus and the Bechlal the Spheros and all the stages are a makeup of two opposite forces. There's a koyach of Gilui and a koyach of Helim, a power of revealing and a power of concealing. The Kelim are the power to conceal, and the Oiros is the power to reveal. Like the Alter Rebbe in Tanya says, that Havaya is the Oir, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, which is the power of revelation, which is divine revelation, is the light, and Elokim, which is the power of concealment, are the Kelim, are the vessels. And here you have a blend of both. So by setting up a Seder Ishtalshalos, the whole Seder Ishtalshalos only works because there is a system of Oiros and Kelim, lights and vessels. So it's a system of concealment and a system of revelation. And the way it evolves and the modification works, is as we trickle down, the more concealment there is, the less revelation there is. The more the Kelim are pronounced, the less the light is. It gets more Kelim, less light. As we're going to see later about that in the Maayor. Because as Hashem is coming closer and closer to the world, he has to modify himself and diminish himself more and more. So now the question over here is, what's the primary of Seder Ishtalshalos? If the primary of Seder Ishtalshalos, of the whole point of it, and its main function and purpose would be just concealment and blockages of the light, then we wouldn't make such a to-do of Chachma, then the main element probably would be Bina and onward. But I'm going to explain that in a moment. But since the main point of Seder Ishtalshalos is not the bringing about our existence, but that Hashem should be able to reveal himself in our existence. That's the point. That's in general we need to know about the worlds. Hashem created the worlds not just for the sake of the worlds to exist. Hashem created the world so that he can have a relationship with his world. And that's the primary function of Seder Ishtalshalos. Therefore, the main player, the main, what we might say, macher in Seder Ishtalshalos, the main power in Seder Ishtalshalos, in the whole order of evolution, is Chachma. Because what differentiates Chachma from all the other spheres? In Chachma, there is hardly a vessel. The vessel is so unpronounced. Because what's Chachma? Chachma is the stage. Chachma is wisdom. And wisdom is the stage where you get to experience the truth of something without a limiting it to your understanding, to our understanding. See, the difference between when we have, let's go through the process. I'm just going to do this very briefly. It's a long discussion. We'll do this just a little point. The difference between the Chachma experience and the Bina experience, when we study something and learn something, is the Chachma is the first flash, right? You're in a situation, you're troubled, you don't understand what's going on. Let's say you're listening to this class and you're a little confused, and you decide to listen to it a few times. And you're listening, and then while you're listening, you're not understanding. But then you close the class and you go off for a walk and you're thinking deeply. And in the midst of the thinking, suddenly, boom! Kind of say, oh, now I get what the class is saying. I hear it, I understand it. It could be this, it could be anything. You can be studying math and you don't understand an equation or a piece of Gemara or whatever it is. You don't understand it, and then suddenly, boom! So it's the first initial flash. And then it happens on the right side of the brain. That's the Chachma. And then after that, you need to pass it on to the left side of the brain, which is the Bina, which is where the analytical side, where you start chopping it up into pieces, you start really, really understanding it with all of its detail, and then you're getting a much better grasp on it. So you understand it much better in the Bina. But it says in Chassidus that it's much sharper when you had that first flash. Even though it was a little far from us, the first flash, how do we know that the first flash is far from a person? Because if I stopped you right after I saw that you got it, and I said, explain it to me, you couldn't explain it to me. Because it's still too far from you. It's almost like standing somewhere and seeing it at a distance. Chachma is called vision. So Chachma is called berachik, from far. You're seeing it. And Bina is close. You're coming up and close to it. That's the difference. Chachma is from a difference. Merchaik Hashem nirali, from a distance Hashem appears to me, that's Chachma. And Bina is close. But so we would think, so Bina is so much stronger, because you're coming close to something. So why is it that you lose a certain sharpness of the idea, it gets lost in the Bina? And the reason for that is because in Chachma, you're experiencing the truth of the subject as it is. Because in Chachma, you're suspending your own kelim. Chachma is a complete bittul. That's why the word Chachma is koyach ma. There is no self in Chachma. The whole power of experiencing a Chachma, an experience of Chachma, it says in Chassidus, to have the art of being able to be creative people. What's the mila? What's the real power of a creative person? Creative people are able to silence themselves completely and come to a place of absolute emptiness. Empty their mind. Because here's the problem. When you're not empty and you're still trying to understand something new, or you want to come up with a new idea, but you're holding on to preconceived past perceptions of truth or whatever it is, then that is blocking you from seeing something totally new from a whole new angle, seeing something on a complete, something utterly new, getting a whole new revelation. You can't do that because you're rigid and you're hard and you're stiff with what you know already. It's like when people come into a class and you can tell on their faces that they're not listening, because everything you're saying they already know already. You can see that they're already immediately making associations. Oh, I heard this already. I heard this from a different Rav. I heard this from a different rabbi. He said it already. Last time I was by Farbrengen and someone said the same thing. The moment you're thinking like that, you're not open to hear anything new. Maybe the rabbi that is speaking is saying something totally new, but you're identifying it with something you heard already. That's Bina, but that's not Chachma. So therefore you'll never get to experiencing something really new. So the Chachma, the art of Chachma is to become totally silent and to allow the pure light to come in. So Chachma, And what does that mean? There's almost no kalim. There's no vessels there. There's just a window. You're opening up your window for fresh air to come in, pure energy to come in as is. And that's the reason when the light does come, when you come to that place of absolute silence, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be creative. Sometimes, artists and writers and composers or whatever it is that they do, they come to a state where they're trying to be creative, and their creativity doesn't work. They experience brain freeze. It's not necessary that it's going to work, but if you're lucky that when you shut your mind down and you close it down, and then suddenly there is and the revelation happens, the reason why it's so sharp and so powerful is because the full truth of the idea has now illuminated and filled your entire space with light. Now, the reason why by Bina it's not as powerful anymore is because what you're doing when you're doing with your Bina is like this. The Chachma is gewaldig. It's awesome. Now you have you've glimpsed the idea, but the question is, how does it fit with everything else you know? How does it fit with all the other information? How does it fit with my brain, with my knowledge? So now I need to take that idea and try to organize everything else I know about life and everything I know about Chassidus and everything I've ever learned with this new concept. So now I'm trying, and for that I need to dissect it. I need to bring it into my seichel, into my understanding, into my kalim. So Bina is already much more kalim dig. There's much more vessels. And so therefore in Bina, and therefore once you absorb a concept into Bina, it's already tainted. It's no more the purity of the idea itself, it's the way you see it. If two people experience the same chachma, it's far more likely that in the chachma, their experiences match. But when they walk away from the class and each one takes it and processes it in their own mind, you're going to come to the two students of Rabbi Akiva, they're each going to deliver the same concept, but it's going to have a complete different flavor. Because it's coming through this one and coming through this one, and that's because of the Bina. The Bina adds already the kalim, it adds the flavor, it adds the coloring of each individual person. And Ein Doyasein Shavin, no people have the same way of understanding things. And that's how you're going to get a different opinion, same idea, but with a different slant from each person individually. So what do you see from here? That in Chachma, although Chachma too is an Or Pnimi means that the light is being internalized. It's shining into a person's kalim. It's part of your seichel. It's entering into your consciousness. It's entering into a revealed state in the person, but the energy is dominating over the kalim. There's hardly any sense of the vessels. The vessels are silenced. The vessels are muted. But in the Bina, the vessels are a little louder. So, therefore, when we say that when we say that Atzilus, the Seder Ishtalshalus, the first one of them is Chachma, and he doesn't bring it over here, but in other places it says that the entire world of Atzilus, although there are 10 spheres in Atzilus, Atzilus is primarily the energy of Chachma, meaning the predominant force of the entire world of Atzilus is Chachma. Because and what does that say? Because that's what the function of Atzilus is. If Atzilus would be primarily about creating the shapes and the forms and the definitions of the world, then the dominating power of Atzilus would be Bina, not Chachma. Because Bina is vessels, kalim. It would be more about creating the definitions and the limitations and the. So if the point of Atzilus would primarily its function, its main objective would be to create the worlds for the worlds to be worlds, then the Ishtalshalus would not be beginning with Chachma, and it wouldn't be about Chachma. It would be we would celebrate and we would highlight the Bina element and the other spheres more than we highlight the Chachma. But since the main point of Atzilus is to be a passageway, to be a transmitter for God, for the Orein Soif, for the infinite light, to make its way down to the creation, not for Hashem just to create worlds, but to create worlds that are on a bond with Him, worlds that can serve Him, that can connect to Him, that can experience Him. For that you need an Atzilus in which the light dominates over the Kalim, where the definitions are there, but they don't mess too much. Their impact is minimal, and the main impact is revelation, that the Or should come through. You should be able to sense the emes of the Eibishter, the emes of God, the truth of God. For that, the Or, for that, Chachma needs to be the main player. And if you go back to the pasuk, that's why the pasuk is emphasizing hachachma ta'oz lechachamim yoiser me'eser shlitim, more than the 10 shlitim. The 10 shlitim, the 10 powers, are the 10 spheroids, including chachma, but more the kelim of chachma, more the vessels of chachma. So that meaning even a chachma, there's also a vessel, a soft vessel, but yet still somewhat of a vessel. So we're saying that the main element of Atzilus is not the vessels, but primarily the light that flows through them, which is mostly the experience of Chachma. So let's read this again. That's the reason why Chachma is the beginning of the whole evolving world. Chachma is the Keli. Why is Chachma the Keli? Because Chachma doesn't have to add its 2 cents. Chachma is able to be so silent. It's the power of Koyach Ma. So only in it is the Orein Soif able to reveal itself. But l'chayra, why do we even need Chachma? Because without Chachma, the Orein Soif doesn't even have any Keli. So it's not going into anything. It's just remaining makif. It's remaining encompassing. Chachma is the mediator to bring the oir at least into a keli. The keli is very, very, very silent. Leheir b'pchenes pnimius, to take it into a pnimius to go away. V'zeu shaman, and this is what it says: Havaya kanani, Hashem has acquired me, reishes darkoi, in the beginning of His way. That pasuk says, the reishes gilu yakav. This pasuk that Hashem has acquired me in the beginning of His way emphasizes, or it's implying, that Chachma is the first kinyan, the first acquisition. Chachma is called Reishis. The first acquisition, the first taking hold of Orein Soif is in Chachma. The Reishis Gilu Yakavu b'Chachma. The first revelation of the revelation. Kav, the Kav is the Or that Hashem, we mentioned Kav already earlier. The Kav is the Orein Soif that Hashem shines into the empty, hollow black hole, in which God introduces His infinity, His infinite light, His creative energy. But the first place, the first world, if you might say, that could, where this Kav is revealed in a world, in a Keli, that's Chachma. Lios the Klolis in Yanakav. Since the objective of the Kav, the main point of the Kav, again, the main point of the Kav is not to create worlds. The main point of the Kav, and consequently everything coming from the Kav, all the Atzilus and everything. What's its main point? Is to illuminate the worlds. To be able to be an internal light. Which is revelation. As it is known. And the beginning of the revelation of the Kav, that there should be a revelation in the worlds, hagilui ba'olamais, hu b'chachma is in chachma. Shua keli klolis, that's the general keli, lekabel b'toicha, to receive in it, b'chines hagilui the Orein Soif baruch hu, the revelation of the Orein Soif. And as we said earlier, chachma, the reason why chachma is that way, because chachma could be silent. Chachma is the quiet student. Chachma doesn't have to speak up and always add his own 2 cents into it. And then from chachma, this experience continues even to the other spheres, although they do have more of a personality and more of a say in it. But yet, since Chachma is the first, Chachma dominates over them. And through the Chachma, nimshach hagilui b'chol ha'atzilus, through the entire world of Atzilus, even into the lowest spheres, v'gam ba'olamais b'yah, even in the 3 lower worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, b'malachim, to the point that we can even bring divine, the Orein Sof consciousness into the angels, the neshamas, and into souls. Sheyiyeh behem asaga elokis, They should be able to have a grasp in the divine. V'gam b'neshama sheyardu lamata. And even into souls that are down here in this world, sheyodim u'masigim elokus, that can know and can grasp Hashem. Shekol zeh, all of this, what enables all of this is the chachma of Atzilus. Okay, we shall, Ezra Hashem, continue next class.